So friends, with this we have Lalit Rawat. Lalit is here with us. Hey Lalit, you are on mute.
Hey Kunal, sorry, some technical challenges.
So thank you so much Lalit for joining us today. The stage is all yours. Please go ahead and continue.
Thank you, Kunal, and thank you so much, MCT Marathon, for 11 hours workshops. Let me just share my screen and let me know if you are able to view my screen. Give me 1 minute. Are
Yes,
you
Lalit.
able?
Visible.
Okay, awesome. So, thank you so much, Kunal, and the whole team of MCT Marathon for making this event bigger and great. So I've been in Microsoft MCT from last 7 years, as well as Microsoft MVP for almost 6 years. And what we are going to discuss today is all about well-architected framework and why it is needed in the today's world. It's been, if you think about the well-architected framework, just think about your infrastructure, think about your Azure resources. When you have built up probably a years back or 2 years, 5 years or 6 years back, when this well-architected frameworks, that the whole methodology or whole framework was not there. Many of the engineers and the client they just went, deploy the services without following the best practices. And then there are a lot of issues. Someone says their application performance is not working. There might be network issues. There might be security and compliance, operations efficiencies was not there, and all of those things, right? And then this things comes into the mind like why something which should not be prepared, where we have followed the well architect policies, procedures, and all of those things, and that's where these words come as an well architect frameworks, right? It has best practices, architectures, assessments, and so many other things for all the technologies. Either you will be on infrastructure or applications migrations or apps, or you are on AI or whatsoever, DevOps tool and whatsoever. You have the policies and the best practices around Azure for all of those things, and we'll take a look at that. With this, I'm Lalit Rawat and I'm a senior solution architect, public speaker, author, blogger, motivator. And I have been written these two books, which is available on Amazon as well as you can find out over internet as well. This is just a short introductions. Now comes into the topic that why we need this well architect frameworks. I will discuss in terms of agenda, what is well architect frameworks, and then how you are going to, what are the tools you are going to to use to optimize your cloud environment in terms of operations excellence, how you're going to enhance the performance, the reliability, security, how you're going to remediate, which is an important part. Now, if you looked out, why this bad things happens, or we can say why there is a challenges comes into the environment, right? So when think in that way, when you are in the end user customer or you are just building something, when someone triggers or they'll come to your applications, what will happen, right? There will be some of those institutions or some of those things which they haven't followed the complete procedures or best practices and launch their products. Second things which comes is in you don't follow the regulatory, whereas in regulatory narrowness will come, mixed messages, or production pressure, which is like your manager says, no, we have to get this delivered by end of the day. But as an engineer, as an architect, you know that cannot be done in a day, because each process or each sprint is going to take some 4 hours, 5 hours, or 6 hours, so whatsoever the hours, right? But you have the deadline from the leadership saying that yes, you'll have to get it delivered by within 2 weeks. But that work, that is for 4.5 weeks or 5 weeks or 6 weeks, right? But they'll have to get this completed. Where a lot of things will be missed in terms of security, in terms of performance, in terms of looking out for A plan, what is A plan, what is B plan, looked out over how that can be quickly resolve those things. You don't looked out in terms of the longer problem, in terms of like what will be the cause into the longer term, rather than we have the short term goals to get that fixed. Then these issues comes as a team. If you're working on a shift, let's say there's a migrations or there's a software development for an applications, right? People might work in 24 by 7 shift. There is a shift change. Someone has given saying that we have developed this, now we have to continue. But the first shift engineer didn't tell you what are the changes he made. And the second shift engineer assumed that these things has been done, right? So the responsibility of the shifting task has not been done quite responsibilities, or quite with the responsible in kind of that nature, will cause a problem. Or in a team, you might have seen a lot of people will be there in the team, but there are only 4 or 5 people who really good at their job. Rest are not. Maybe they are learning, so they don't have that much of training. They might even don't know or aware of the security or operations excellencies or optimizations and all of those things, right? That will there. And then the fourth part comes as an individual. As an individual, you have lot of things which is going, your family, your financial conditions, or could be anything which might be distract from those specific areas, and all of those things comes into this. The last one is technical challenges, because if you look down when people have started migrating from on-premises to Azure and start using cloud services, there are a lot of challenges. They're not able to understand the technology. They don't know how this technology is going to be safe, how you can adopt this specific technology, right? Lot of challenges are there. So it could be a clumsy technology. There will be a lot of coding bugs. Maintenance was not there, or they could be deferred with the maintenance and all of those things. There are a lot of challenges. And I'll give you a scenario where when I started my career in 2010 in Microsoft. At that time it's not launched publicly, but we have been building this whole product, and I was a part of one team. And till that time it's good, but as and when in 2014 and 15, when Satya Nadella has announced that we're going on public cloud, right? The hype was there. People started migrating that. And then there is a shift from classic to the resource manager. And the classic, the applications is tight, so much tightly integrated with each other that you cannot, customize it based on your requirement. If you touch one applications, if you touch the one integral part of that particular applications, it will break like anything. So they'll have the service broker and other things. But now if you looked out when they migrated to resource manager, seems more friendly, seems more easily. But that shift has happened from classic to resource manager. Lot of things has not been followed. So with all of those, though even following the best practices, but things has been missed. And that's where that incident or accident will happen. And that's where you would need a well architected frameworks to make sure you will review your environment whether there is any issues, challenges, and other things will come to know. That's how these things will come. The next part is what is well architect frameworks. In the definitions I have already given, well architect frameworks is nothing but it's a combine of your best practices, policies, reference architecture, assessments, recommendations, service guidelines in terms of not on Azure. People, generally, if you talk about Azure, just Azure. And then in Microsoft Azure, there are all the services comes. Now they have been, segregated to the multiple services in terms of your data services, AI services, and generative AI. Then you have infrastructure, SaaS model, and all of those things. But ultimately, if you look down, it's all Microsoft Azure, where all of those services will be a part of Microsoft Azure as a one. Though even they have been promoting as a separate services, but that's where that well architect frameworks also segregated into the multiple parts. So how you want it for your infrastructure, for your applications, for your SAP workload, for your AI workload, or security, or other things. But all of those things, Microsoft is came with the solutions so beautifully. They've defined into the five parts of well architect frameworks. First one is cost optimizations. Second is security. Third one is reliability, operations excellence, and performance efficiency. Right now, this five pillar, it could be any services in and around Microsoft Azure covers. You talk about data services, talk about applications, migrations, AI, optimizations. For all of those services, they have the best practices, design documents, guidelines, and all of those things, which I'm going to show you. So basically, Bell Architect Frameworks is a five level of maturity model that helps in terms of your workload to make sure you follow the best practices and improve upon their Azure capabilities, their optimizations, their security governance, reliability, operations excellency, and then how your performance will be there. And that's how this whole framework works and design. Now, if we talk about in terms of where to start with in BEF, the first one is how you are going to strategize your planning to use the well architect frameworks. Right. First of all, you'll have to map your strategy or business objectives to the BEF pillar. What do you wanted to achieve first? It's your financial goal, it's your application's performance, it's your security or compliance. What are those first of all of those five pillars of well architect frameworks you wanted to achieve, right? And then once you have that strategy, you can start looking at that. And I have the couple of slides at last. I'll show you that what tool you will use to optimize this cost or security or governance. So first things is strategize your planning with your BAF architecture. Now, what will be your strategy to execution journey, right? How you're going to strategize and then make sure you execute properly. If you strategize well, don't execute properly, your things will be failed, right? So in the first slide, we have seen that how our strategy has been planned, right? That we wanted to achieve cost optimizations. That's the first strategy. And in cost optimizations, you have list out, let's say you have compute, you have applications, right? These two things you wanted to optimize first. Then you looked out how this applications been designed or what's their architecture. It's clumsy, or you are using everything within a single code, or you will be using API integrations, or probably you know, multiple APIs will be connecting to the single data source or the database. How will be your database, will be there, right? How the database are getting connecting to your applications, whether you have the caching or not, how your applications are interacting with the internet users, whether you're using load balancers and all of those things. So you'll have to look out external factor and the internal factor, and then you're going and designing an architecture. So first you design this, second you are optimizing your architecture. If it is not there, you're going, building, reviewing with this best practices, whether your architecture is fits to the BAF policies and the governance stuff. And the third things which we are going to implement, right? Implementation is the major part. That these are the changes we wanted to implement, and that should be there. If it is your greenfield environment, it's obviously no issues. But if you are doing it in your brownfield environment, there are a lot of challenges may come, because I'll have to reconfigure many of those other stuff, right? So you'll have to plan that also in your strategy if you're doing for your brownfield environment. And the last one is continuous optimizations. If you don't do the continuous optimizations, there are a lot of updates, a lot of changes in terms of Microsoft Azure. Products are coming, you might miss a lot of things, because you will be, develop your applications continuously, you are upgrading your applications, changing a lot of things. And if you don't optimize, what will happen? Those, the changes which you have done or upgrading your applications will still be there, whether it is right or wrong, you don't know. So the optimizations, if you do it continuously, that will make sure your applications as well as your operations cost should be reduced, and that will be aligned to your organization's goal. So that's how this is really important whenever you are planning to build any of those applications. Use this four method: strategize your applications, architecture, build the architectures, followed by well architect frameworks, implementations, and then do the continuous optimizations. If you looked out in terms of defining your business strategy, so when I show you this particular document of well architect frameworks, what will happen? I will say, why do you want it to migrate to Azure? What is your team size, whether your team is trained to it or not? These, all of those questions, assessment questions will be there, right? So first of all, if you wanted to build or migrate any of those products from on premises to Azure, or you wanted to directly build on Azure, first you're defining your business goal. What is the business goal you wanted to achieve, right? Whether in terms of compliances, security, and all of those things. And then you are going to assessing your workload, right? I have seen this practice, and I have been working in corporate almost for 18 years and delivered more than 500 to 600 projects. In 80 to 90% of the projects, what I seen is the engineers wants to build something on Azure and they want it in their way. They have to follow their own policies. And when they build out, at that time it's good. But that looked out after 5 months and 6 months, the problem starts coming on that. Because they haven't been follow those best practices, right? They haven't assessed their workload, they haven't done the optimizations and all of those things, and the challenges will come start there. I've been, delivering some of those SAP migrations for one of the client. The team who worked on this has messed up the environment completely. They have not followed a single practice. They have built out clumsy networks, they build out the clumsy resources, and lots of other challenges. They have just shifted the workload from one backup vault to another backup vault. And when we wanted to do the failover, It's all getting failed. We have to do the rework again, right? So whenever you are defining your business goal, you have to define your strategy. You have to define your documentations, processes, all of those things. Then you assess your workloads. Then you prioritize what are the tasks or the actions you wanted to take or you wanted to go with it, and how you can automate the governance in terms of operations and governance, right? What are the tasks you can automate, right? So you can reduce the workload on engineers and you can save some cost. There are many things, or Azure automations are there. There are Terraform, PowerShell. There are multiple things where you can run those automations and you can optimize your resources, as well as implement the governance policies, security, compliance, RBAC policies. Then we'll have Azure policies and all of those things. You can do it and put it across. So whenever you are thinking in terms of building some of those products, and then you can define those business process strategy. Now we looked out how you're going to assess your workload using the well-architected frameworks. So, well-architected frameworks has the multiple tools which helps you to identify gaps in your architecture, provides the actionable items and the recommendations, right? And this screen, if you looked out that overall result in terms of cost optimizations, operations excellence, performance efficiencies, and the reliability and the security, all of those things where you have to follow a couple of questions, you have to answer it, whether these are the things are there or not. So let's just look out in terms of well-architected frameworks review, right? So what I'm going to do is, if you wanted to start well-architected frameworks, you'll have to sign in first. So it's not only for architects. And as if you looked out, the DevOps capabilities assessments are there. If you're deploying any of the mission critical applications, for that is there. Azure Landing Zone, which is pretty much important for all of, either you build a data platform or you are building for application platform, infrastructure platform. Landing zone should be there, the base components. So what is landing zone? Landing zone is nothing but it is your network infrastructure and operations related stuff which you have to build out first. Basically a base component you have to build in your Azure. Like when you are building up your house, you'll do the basements first, right? And you have make sure your pillars are strong. So the same way, these are the pillars. If you build out the landing zone, it covers Active Directory, Entra ID, it covers your networks, operations, and all of those things. And then based out of that, I got that covered, right? And then we'll have a lot of other things which you wanted to do it. So let me just sign in and then we can start the assessment. I think I might have other assessments as well. Previously have completed. I can show you that as well, which I have completed previously, because this assessments is getting to time taking, right? So now if you wanted to start your assessment, just click on Azure Well Architect Frameworks assessment. Now they will ask. You can change this assessment name if you wanted to do it for your auditing prospects and all of those things, and what type of the workload you wanted to assess. So I'll just put it for this date, whether it is your core or it's for your machine learning or Azure Stack. I'll say, let's say, put it as a core. Now there will be 5 pillar, right? So which pillar you wanted to start first? So I'll say, let's start with the cost optimizations. if you looked out, cost optimizations have these many questions, and we'll have to answer it. If I put it reliability, your questions will get increased. Same with other optimizations and this. We'll have to do this. I think it will take just 30 minutes, 30 to 40 minutes to get all of those answers. But for consider the time, I would just go with cost optimizations. Even you can take a note if you wanted to, right? This is the questions, right? So how do you wanted to create a culture in terms of finance responsibilities, right? You wanted to do a budget and then workload based on that, or you wanted to train persons into cost optimization strategy. I'll say that's the first one. And you can choose the multiple parts. And based on that, the next questions will be decided. I'm not making too complex. And now, if we looked out, it is asking how do you performing the cost modeling, whether you have workload which is assigned to your business metrics, and do you have budget for those workloads and all of those things, the estimations which we are going to do that. I'll just put it quickly. I'll take this answers, and I'm just not going to read this cost. How are you going to monitor? So you say how are you going to generate the reports and all of those things, whether you are going to implement or governing your spend. And then there are multiple other questions are there. Then we'll have how you are going to get that best rates. So do you have any discounts, or you'll have any billing model? So if you have any billing model and all of those things, you can check on that part. Because when Microsoft, you go and talk to the CSP, they'll give you a lot of discounts. If you have an enterprise EA account, then probably you'll have an contract with Microsoft, and you will getting some additional discounts based on your contract and availability, right? How your resource is going to be utilized, and in terms of having billing increments and all of those things. Then the next question is how you're going to optimize your component in terms of costs. So you can look down whether in terms of applications, feature optimizations, platform, workload, or you just avoided introduction and unoptimized components, right? All of those things. So based on that, I'm just leaving a couple of questions like this. Then what will be your cost optimizations workflow, right? You can just select. Let me quickly complete this. Even it is also asking and giving you whether you are going to scale your product, or how you're going to optimizing the scaling, how you're going to evaluate your product, right? When you optimize those things in your personal times, or how you're going to optimize the operational tasks, right? All of those things will be there, and based on that, I will give you the suggestions. Now, once you have completed this whole assessment, right, we'll see this is moderate. The score will be 33 to 67. Ideally, that should reach to 67 to 100 to make sure that you will be there. You can download this, all of those data and CSV format. And if you looked out, right, all of those things, what are the numbers you will get it here, and then where you are lacking it. These are the best practices they'll be asking to follow, right? And sorry, and the data. So you can, if you want, you can look out all of those recommendations and what are the questions which you haven't answered it, right? So these are the things which you haven't done. That's okay because we haven't taken that. But if you looked out, right, you'll have multiple recommendations in terms of implementing of a strategy for offload and all of those things will be there, right? So that is there. If I looked out my earlier assessment, so it is one critical and one these things. If I'll open this assessment, again, right, it is critical because even I haven't reached to the moderate one, and these are the recommendations which is there, and it just not give you the results, but it will also give you in terms of what are the optimizations stuff, what are the guidance you have to follow, and the links and everything will be there. Once you have implement this, you can recheck with your workload and it will be done. And even like it does not have only one, but it has multiple models, right? So you wanted to look out for your Azure landing zone assessments and all of those things will be here, right? So I have done for landing zone. Then if you have an app and data, right? All of those things are there, and there are many other assessments in terms of cognitive services, ISO workload, right? And with VMware solutions or VMware landing zones, AI engineering skill assessments, right? All of those things here. So I would say like just go and validate or basically use this end-to-end assessment framework, which will really going to help you in terms of your workloads. Now let's look that out. So once you are done with your current assessment, now what are the tool within Azure? They are going to help you in terms of your existing resources, which is already built in your environment. So it's a cloud advisor tool, which will help you to identify on those based on those well architect frameworks pillar. So if you looked out this particular advisor screen, you'll have cost, security, reliability, and operations excellency, performance, and all recommendations. All of those things are there, and these things will be based on your cloud sorry based on your well architect framework or BAF frameworks, the benchmarks which has been setted for this tool as BAF, and then you can identify the gaps and you can find out the long term opportunity to get those fixed, and we can probably take a look on that part as well. I'll have to log into my portal. 1 minute. So Azure Advisor is a tool earlier just used to identify your couple of resources, but it has been been really amazing, right? So looked out, if you looked out, right, these are the recommendations in terms of cost, security, reliability, operations excellence, and performance. So let's say we didn't find any issues in this. Operations is still okay because that's been 92%, but there are major recommendations in terms of security and reliability. So let's look out what are the things are there in terms of security. There are guest user accounts which has the subscription access. Your disk encryptions are not available in your 7 virtual machines, right? And then if you click on this, let's give you the solutions as well. So what will be your remediations? And do you want it to enable this? You'll just go and enable the disk encryptions, right? You can, enable the disk encryptions for all of those things. And you wanted to assign the owner, right? Let's say within your team, you wanted to assign this task to someone. You can assign this task to someone and it will be notified. So advisor is not only giving you the recommendations, but it also gives you the solutions. You wanted to look out in terms of cost. So there are app services which has the reserve instance. So you can save up to $1897, probably $1,897. There are virtual machines which they are giving. You'll have to buy the reserve instance, and this is the potential saving basically for year, right? Not for these things. And if you looked out, these are the potential carbon reductions if you quickly fix this. So it's not only saving your cost, but the carbon reductions which causing the environmental health issues. It also tells that as well, that how you are going to do that. And even you can create the recommendation digest or the alerts and monitoring and all of those things. That is some things you can do that. And then you can have this advisor score that, so you have 66%, which is pretty low because of security. So when get that implemented, integrated with your environment, that's all good. Your score will increase. And you believe me or not, these all of those things are measures in your Microsoft audit. If your company wants to, audit on specific certifications, these things are mandatory, and they'll ask for well-architected frameworks, reports, and your environment in terms of groups. So it is pretty critical. And you looked out the visibility from your organizations to the Microsoft, how seriously they would need that, make sure the environment are not at risk. Now, if you looked out, what are the optimizations techniques by those well-architected frameworks, 5 pillar? I have given you do the cost optimizations, operations excellency, and all of those things. If I will not give you the solutions, I'll say like you haven't learned anything, right? We'll just say Lalit came, told me blah blah this you do, but how to do, how you can, what are the tools, what are the techniques you will use to optimize it, right? So the first part, the first pillar which I say is cost optimizations, right? How you can plan for your cost. First of all, you just start following the advisor recommendations, and my suggestion is don't follow blindly, follow what is needed, right? So you take out the report, review for 6 month or 12 month, identify your cost, outline and analysis those, and you looked out where and all you can save the cost, right? You review the budget and have alert configurations. You can do the alert configurations, look down the operational cost, and then plan. Second one is how you're going to implement those plan, right? Once you're done with your review services, again, sizing patterns, SQ, VMs, and all of those things, I have seen Many of the organizations where they have three environment, UAT, dev test, and prod, even they have creating with the same instance size and respect of whatsoever the environment. In production, we understand that as needed, you needed this higher SQ related stuff or the compute and the services. But do we really think it is also needed in dev and test environment? Because you don't see there will a lot of people are coming. And the productions, yes, that's in your public applications, which is giving you the marginal financial things as well. But why do we need it for test and dev? I'm not saying it's mandatory in all the cases, but we looked out 60 to 70% of the cases don't need it. People are running their resources 24 by 7. Why do we need until unless you don't have the 24 by 7 team and you want it to utilize, right? So you can reduce this from using this and then reduce this things, or you can use the auto shutdown or scaling up, or let's say spot or reserve instances you can utilize. And the third one is reserve instances and the licenses. Reserve instances and the licenses can save you up to 50 to 60% of your cost. And when you use the reserve instance and the hybrid licenses, on-premises licenses you'll have, that will be around will reach to 70% of your cost. So that is something you would really think about it. And these are the couple of techniques, the tools which you can use and reduce the cost.
Hey, Lalit, sorry to interrupt you, but we are just running out of the time. So yeah, please, just a reminder.
So I'll have 5 minutes. Quickly finish that up.
Huh, yes.
And then if you looked out well-architected BEF pillar, whereas majorly you have unused resources, locations performance, and then there are a lot of architecture related changes will be there and people will be using it. And then reliability, I'll do the architecture review, audits, and high availability stuffs. BCDR planning, disaster recovery planning, your detentions, response, or the design pattern might not, followed by your well-architected frameworks. Then your performance because will be down because of CPU, disk IOPS, VM sizing, the network bandwidth, or your scaling. You might not be using scaling. Backup services or application design might not and proper, or data sharing. But I'm just walking through because we just have having we're running out of time. And then we'll have identity in terms of security. Your identity should be strong in terms of you'll be using role-based access control, doing an encryptions. I'll have the networking related stuff. So I'll have key and secrets will follow the Azure monitoring, vulnerability detections, SIM solutions for these things. And at last, it's your operations excellency. You'll have to follow the regressive monitoring, resource optimizations. I'll have to have the deployment strategy and the automation tool to make sure you run without any issues. At last, if you wanted to remediate all of those issues, first of all, you'll have to review environment, take the backup, communicate to users, document it, fix it, validate, and implement. So that is how you're going to remediate. And with this, there will lesson learned. Start with the strategy, not with the tool. You will use well-architected framework as early as possible. You can avoid over engineering on resources when you've been deploying or monitoring. You will monitor it and iterate continuously whatever the operations related stuff you wanted to continuously optimize. You start doing that. And with this, thank you so much, Kunal and India MCT Marathon team for providing the opportunity. You can connect me on LinkedIn.
Thank you so much, Lalit, for providing this wonderful, knowledgeable session. I personally learned a lot about well-architected framework, and yes, I personally believe that we all should implement it in our application. So thank you so much. And again, friends, as you all have registered, so here we have around 474 people watching us live. Plus, we are having watch parties going on in various IT organizations as well as colleges throughout the India. We have people from Mumbai, we have from Chennai, Ahmedabad, Vadodara, and Surat. So they all have used the Tech Mill platform, right? So the Tech Mill platform is developed by Lalit and his team. So Lalit, kudos to your work,
Thank you
and
so
it's a
much.
very portal for all of us. Yes, thank you so much, Lalit. So as we have the constraint in time, sorry, I have to stop you at that time.
No problem.
Yeah,
That's absolutely fine.
thank you so much, Lalit.